The UK wakes up to a new year and a new relationship with the European Union. 4.5 years after the UK voted to leave the bloc, both sides now stepping out into uncharted post-divorce territory. In the face of mounting criticism of the pace of the rollout of France's coronavirus vaccination programme, President Macron uses vows to tackle unjustified delays. And from live-streamed fireworks displays to candlelit vigils, countries around the world welcome in 2021 in the shadow of the global coronavirus pandemic. Hello, Happy New Year and welcome to the France 24 newsroom. I'm Haxie Myers-Belkin. 2021 has arrived, and for the UK that means the start of a radically different relationship with the European Union. The UK officially left the EU on the 31st of January, but the Brexit transition period has now come to an end. Great Britain has been cast out from the single market and the bloc's customs union, but an 11th hour trade deal means a so-called cliff-edge Brexit has been avoided. Catherine Viette explains.
With the tolling of Big Ben, 48 years of partnership has come to an end as the UK exits the European Union. The Brexit saga has dominated headlines and EU affairs for the past 5 years. Many say they're ready to put it all behind them.
I feel sad in the sense that we are European and we should all be at the table.
I feel quite sad that we're leaving, but I suppose I'm glad that we've got a deal and that we're moving forward because it's taken a long time to get to this point.
It's just fantastic to finally have Brexit go through. You know, hopefully we can finally start being a country again, singularly rather than in the Union.
In his New Year message, the British Prime Minister hailed the Brexit deal.
This is an amazing moment for this country. We have our freedom in our hands, and it is up to us to make the most of it.
Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon took to Twitter, tweeting, "Scotland will be back soon, Europe. Keep the light on." Going forward, many things are set to change, such as rules on travel, trade, immigration and security. As of midnight, duty-free shopping is in effect, with UK residents allowed to bring up to 42 litres of beer, 18 litres of wine, 4 litres of spirits and 200 cigarettes without paying tax. Free movement of people has ended, and anyone from the UK wishing to stay in the EU for longer than 90 days in any 180-day period will now need a visa. And customs checks on British goods entering the EU are back. Uncertainties remain as both sides anticipate there will be bumps along the way.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was a figurehead of the Leave campaign back in 2016 and has welcomed the UK's formal separation from the EU as a chance to do things differently and better. Our London correspondent Bénédicte Pavieux sent us this.
We have our freedom in our hands and it is up to us to make the most of it. This is an amazing moment for this country. The words of the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a confident, ambitious Prime Minister for his United Kingdom, acknowledging the terrible year that has gone past and the terrible death toll of the pandemic, as it records 72,500 deaths, but saying these are not liberties he wanted to deprive people of. He dwells on the ambition that he has for the United Kingdom, a leader in artificial intelligence, in science and in biosciences. He evokes the leadership of the G7, of the COP26, many things on the agenda of 2021. But of course, this New Year's message is also very much about Brexit, a new dawn, a new chapter for the United Kingdom, and he invites all 4 nations that make up the UK, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, to unite and to show the best of their values. When necessary, we will do better than the EU. We will be its best friend and its ally. So those are the wishes for the British Prime Minister, for this country, and no party atmosphere here. We are in the middle of a pandemic and most of the country is very much, if not in lockdown, in severe restrictions. So a rather sobering entry, particularly for those who are actually regret the relationship changing and that departure from the EU. Definitely a new dawn has arrived.
Brexit means an entirely new system of trade between the UK and the EU. Despite assurances that new border controls at the port of Dover are ready to go, there are fears that huge tailbacks could be inevitable as businesses adapt to new paperwork and customs checks. The French side of the Channel has also been bracing for today. The port of Calais is just over 30 kilometres from Dover, and it's the point of entry for thousands of trucks every single day. Luke Brown has more.
The French port of Calais waking up to a new reality this morning. This is now the external frontier of the European Union. That means all the vehicles coming and going will have to be checked and inspected in some shape or form. That's hugely important given that 70% of all trade between the UK and the EU passes through the port of Calais here or Dunkirk further up the coast. That's 12,000 trucks and lorries each a day. So as you can imagine, any delay to those inspections will have huge knock-on consequences. Now, the French authorities say their main objective is to keep things running as smoothly as possible. Their main tool to do that is a new smart border that works in 3 stages. The first stage is that the cargo is declared by the transporter ahead of boarding the ferry. Then that is processed by the customs officials during the crossing on line, and then on arrival on disembarkation, the truck's license plates are scanned automatically, and then they are put into either a green continue lane or an orange lane for further inspections. Now, to deal with those further inspections, the French authorities have already spent 40 million euros on new infrastructure. They've hired 700 new customs officials. A lot of the responsibility, it has to be said, will fall on the shoulders of the transport and cargo companies themselves, given that it is them that will be having to fill in all the paperwork ahead of journeys. Will that be enough? The French authorities are very clear about this. They're hoping for a quiet month of January. It is outside of the high season. It is low season in the month of January, and as such, they hope to be able to iron out any difficulties during that period.
Luke Brown there in Calais. Well, in the months before a Brexit trade deal was finally agreed on Christmas Eve, fishing rights were one of the major sticking points in negotiations. British fishermen wanted their European rivals to have limits on how much they could take from UK waters, while also maintaining their ability to sell their fish in the EU. Shelley Sitbon takes a look at what exactly was agreed on.
For the first time since 1973, we will be an independent coastal state with full control of our waters.
The long-awaited compromise over fishing starts with a first phase that will stretch until 2026. European fishermen will have access to British waters, but their quotas will gradually shrink by 25%, eventually cutting the value of their annual catches by about 650 million euros. That's lower than the 60% cut the British demanded at first. EU fishermen catch 14% of their fish in UK waters. The share is logically larger for countries close to Britain, like France, which catches 30% of its fish in British waters.
We spend our summer with the English. We catch 80% of our fish there. Over here, there's nothing in the summer. Business is dead.
EU fishermen catch about 700 million euros worth of fish in British waters every year, while their UK counterparts get 154 million euros worth of fish in European waters. The compromise says that after 2026, the UK and the EU will negotiate quotas every year, and that London could cut them down. But the British depend on the EU as well. 73% of their fish is sold on the continent.
In the early days of Brexit, there was a lot of talk of the UK establishing a new lucrative trade deal with the United States. And under President Donald Trump, that looked like a done deal. But when Joe Biden won the US presidential election, hopes of quickly establishing a new US-UK trade deal began to fade. Washington correspondent Ketavan Gordestani has more.
By leaving the European Union, the UK is weakening another strategic partnership, this time with the United States. The UK, once America's preferred European partner, is set to lose some of its value in the eyes of the United States since it will no longer be able to influence decision-making in Brussels. At the same time, the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is losing his friend in the White House, with Donald Trump set to leave office in a few weeks. But Brexit is also creating some challenges for the new U.S. President, Joe Biden, starting with the issue of trade and how the Brexit deal will affect U.S. companies who have long seen the U.K. as the base, the center from which to enter the European market. The U.S. is also going to lose a major ally within the European Union with whom it sees eye to eye on some key foreign policy issues, especially regarding how to deal with countries like China or Russia. But no matter the special relationship between the US and the UK, and despite the Biden administration insisting that it supports both a strong UK and a strong EU, it is the latter because of its size, because of the European Union's weight on the world stage, that Joe Biden will be counting on to tackle some of the biggest global challenges, from security to climate change.
Well, time now for some non-Brexit news. Here in Paris, New Year's Eve usually means throngs of people celebrating on the Champs-Élysées. But this year, the boulevard was eerily empty, with the country still under a strict 8 p.m. curfew. President Emmanuel Macron using his New Year's address to reassure people that the COVID vaccine would be rolled out as quickly as possible. Marius Sophos has more.
With the French government under fire for the slow rollout of its COVID-19 vaccination programme, President Emmanuel Macron used his traditional New Year's address to promise that there would be no unnecessary delays in providing inoculations.
Je ne laisserai personne jouer avec la sûreté et les bonnes conditions, encadrées par nos scientifiques et nos médecins, dans lesquelles la vaccination doit se faire. Et je ne laisserai pas davantage, pour de mauvaises raisons, une lenteur injustifiée s'installer. Chaque Français qui le souhaite doit pouvoir se faire vacciner de manière sûre et dans le bon ordre, en commençant par ceux qui présentent le plus de risques.
On Sunday, France joined several other EU countries in launching the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Since then, fewer than 200 people have been vaccinated in France compared to 78,000 people in Germany. It's raising questions over the French government's cautious approach to vaccinating a largely sceptical population, with just 40% of French people wanting to receive the jab. Some are wary of past health scandals in France in recent decades, including those involving mismanaged vaccines. Some also fear that the coronavirus vaccines were developed too quickly, are aimed at bringing profit to big pharmaceutical companies, or risk long-term side effects that will only be discovered years from now. Shortly before Emmanuel Macron's speech on Thursday, Health Minister Olivier Véran announced plans to expand France's vaccination programme, which so far has solely targeted care home residents and health workers aged over 65. Véran said that from Monday, health workers aged over 50 could also get the jab, much sooner than initially planned.
Now, France, of course, wasn't alone in ringing in the new year in a decidedly more muted fashion than usual, thanks to the pandemic, of course. Across the world, celebrations were tailored to each country's specific COVID restrictions, as billions bid farewell to a year they'd rather forget.
Among the first countries to see in the new year was Australia, and while Sydney Harbour was illuminated as ever by fireworks, residents were urged not to attend in person, with most watching this year's 7-minute pyrotechnic show live on television from their homes. In London, the annual fireworks display was called off by authorities in an effort to discourage crowds from gathering. Across the Channel, France's government flooded the streets with 100,000 police officers on New Year's Eve to enforce the country's nationwide curfew. A strict clampdown on breaches of COVID-19 regulation that was echoed in other countries, also with curfews, such as Italy, Turkey and Greece.
Please continue to wear your mask, residents of the city.
In South Africa, residents were urged to cancel parties and light candles to honour health workers and people who have died during the pandemic. Dubai, a popular New Year's destination for people the world over, went ahead with celebrations despite a recent surge of infections. In Rio de Janeiro, a city famed for its revelry, official celebrations and fireworks were cancelled. though police officers braced themselves for a long night. Resounding bells rung in the new year at Tokyo's Sensoji Temple, though the city's governor asked people to avoid countdown ceremonies. New Zealand and several of its South Pacific island neighbours that also have no active COVID-19 cases held their usual New Year's activities.
Well, that's all we have time for right now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. There's more news coming up in 15 minutes' time.